Shalom, brother Naquam, watchman for Israel, coming back at you with these precepts and another cold cut, giving, of course, our honor and our glory to Yahweh. Ba'ashima Mashiach Malak Yabushai, double honors to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting for the second coming of Mashiach Malak Yabushai. A hearty, mighty shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there in the highways and byways, pushing this truth, magnifying the ministry, and presenting their body as a living sacrifice. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the men that may not be out there in the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're getting built up in the spirit. They're praying, they're fasting, they're studying. They're being diligent and abounded in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the Aquath out there, the sincere sisters out there, holding it down in households, reverencing their husbands, being submissive and diligent, and moving in the spirit of our righteous foremother. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to the ancient men, the children, and the elect of Israel scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom, shalom. And Shabbat shalom to everybody tuning in live. The Don Israel, V.Y. McKellar, Luis Fambro, Don Israel, HBK Ent, Byron Robinson, Tapuak, Callaway T, Yakal, Shalom King, T Sellers, Shalom Ainan, Tribe of Judah, T Sellers, Love Pious, Salakia, Nigel Blends, and everybody else tuning in and that will tune in, Lord willing. Shabbat Shalom. This is WFI Law School. I believe this is our fifth installment. We've covered the dietary law thus far. We've covered the Nazarite vow. We've taken a look at the ancient world and the ancient mind, marriage and death. Right? We've covered various topics, right? And now we're diving into Deuteronomy chapter 33 and the blessing of the tribes. Right? Now you may say, well, I thought this was going into the law. Well, Deuteronomy is part of the law. It may not have particular instructions embedded within this chapter, but Deuteronomy is still part of the law, right? It really means the second law, right? So you have a rehearsing of the law being told by Moses again to the generation that's about to enter into the promised land at this time. So a lot of these laws are being repeated and things are being explained to this generation that they may know how to uphold the end of the covenant before they enter into the land of Israel. So we're going to go into Deuteronomy chapter 33 and the blessings of the tribes, because Moses, the man of God, actually blessed the tribes the same way a father would bless his sons on the day of his death or approaching his death, right? This is Deuteronomy chapter 33. It reads the blessing of Moses. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 33 links up with Genesis chapter 49, right? Some things are a little bit different. Some things are the same. But Deuteronomy 33 is Moses' blessing on the tribes. Genesis chapter 49 is Jacob's or Israel's blessing on the tribes. All right, so this is Deuteronomy 33 and 1. And this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of the Most High, blessed the children of Israel before his death. And that's an ancient Israelite custom when fathers would bless their children before their death, right? They didn't necessarily do the things they do in this world now, man. They actually had the spiritual power given to them by Yahweh Bashar to bless their children. And what they blessed them with was somewhat of a prophecy. And it would be a stigma, and it would attach to those children, and they would live off the words that their father spoke. Remember, Isaac blessed Esau and Jacob before his death. Jacob blessed Joseph and Ephraim and Manasseh before his death, right? So these things are common amongst us as a people, right? When you go to, let's prove that real quick, because Moses blessed the children of Israel before his death, right? Let's get this in Genesis chapter 27. This is Genesis chapter 27 and 1. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau, his eldest son, and said unto him, my son. And he said unto him, behold, here am I. And he said, behold, now I am old. I know not the day of my death. So Isaac knew his days were numbered, right? And his time was running short amongst the land of the living. It reads, now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow, and go out to the field and take me some venison. and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. That's like your last meal. That had to have been Isaac's, favorite meal, right? That was one of the last things he wanted to eat before he died. Now, the point of the matter is that my soul may bless thee before I die, right? Because if the father didn't bless the son would lose that somewhat of that connection of his inheritance and the promises that the Most High gave him. So you have to have those blessings put upon your son. Now, if you have been a man of the Lord, right, within your 80, 90 years, however long you walk the earth, then whatever you put on your son, those blessings are going to come to pass. All right. But if you've been some type of wicked man, ungodly man, a thief, a murderer, an adulterer, you try to bless your son before he died, the Most High's not hearing that. It says, now we know that the Lord heareth not sinners. And John 9:31. But if any man be a worshiper of the Most High and doeth his will, him he heareth. Right? So this blessing actually came to pass. Esau does live by the sword. When you read this blessing, right? Genesis chapter 27-30, I'll read 40. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So that's the blessing, and it came to pass. Jacob got a blessing, and it came to pass. Right? So this makes Isaac a prophet. Isaac prophesied, and your blessings, they tie in hand with prophecy. Right? Let's get another account. Let's go to Genesis chapter 48. Right? Let's see. I had a few precepts written down. Let's go to Genesis 48, and we'll read 1. It reads, and it shall come, and it came to pass after these things, that one told Joseph, behold, thy father is sick. And he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. So why is he taking his 2 sons? Because he got to get these blessings before his father died. Our fathers knew the power of blessings, man. And one told Jacob and said, behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee. And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed. And Jacob said unto Joseph, God Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said unto me, behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and will make thee a multitude of people, and will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession. And now thy 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born unto thee in the land of Egypt before I came unto thee into Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. So Joseph blessed Jacob, and that birthright went upon his son, Ephraim, and said, just as Reuben is my firstborn son, and Simeon is my secondborn son, Ephraim and Manasseh are also mine. You see that? And this was before he died, when he was sick. So Deuteronomy 33 is the Lord using Moses. And really the Most High put it in these men's hearts, their fathers' hearts, to give that right blessing to that right son. And everybody would get these blessings. Now, if you was a rebellious son, you wouldn't get the blessing. You would get a curse. Remember, Jacob said, I would get a curse instead of a blessing. Let me get that real quick. Back in Genesis 27, because he was kind of apprehensive to follow his mother's instruction about overthrowing Esau to get that birthright or get that blessing. Right? This is Genesis chapter 27 and verse, let's see. Okay, 12. My father, Genesis 27:12. My father peradventure will fail me, and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me and not a blessing. You see that? Because Isaac could have very well said, cursed shalt thou be from the earth, all thy children shall die, and thou shalt perish in a strange land. And guess what? It would have came to pass. Right? So these are the things and the power that Yahweh Basham Shah has given us. And this is part of what makes us Israel, man. Not just that you're the strongest, man. Okay, you run the fastest, you dress the best. You have power with the Most High and with men. That's the definition. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men. So your power with the Most High is when you speak particular things in the spirit, the Heavenly Father honors those things and allows those things to come to pass in righteousness through faith, right? So that's part of having power with the Most High and with men. All right, Genesis 33:1, and this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of the Most High, blessed the children of Israel before his death, right? And he said, the Lord came from Sinai and rose up from Seir unto them. He shined forth from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000s of saints. From his right hand went a fiery law for them. So he's recounting how he received the law, right? When Moses received the law on Mount Sinai, he's giving you more of an in-depth breakdown of how this thing actually went down. Yahweh came with many angels, 10,000s of the angels, and gave Moses a fiery law. All right, let's actually prove that real quick, right? Because you can say, well, I don't remember seeing angels came down. Well, that's why things are broken down in later chapters and books in the Bible, right? That's where you have to go precept upon precept, right? Let's go to Galatians real quick, just to prove that Moses received the law by the angels. And there's even older paintings and Renaissance art, so-called, of Moses receiving the law and his chariots, spinning in the background. You think the Most High is going to give his law to Moses in the dark night, and Moses wakes up and the laws are under his pillow in some type of subtle, meek fashion? No. The Most High deals with theatrics, for lack of better terms, drama, right? And all of these things, man. Excitement and zeal. So the law was given to Moses in a spectacular fashion, right? Galatians 3:19. Wherefore then serveth the law? It was added because of transgressions, till the seed should come, to whom the promise was made. Here's the point. And it, meaning the law, was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator. So the law was ordained, meaning given to Moses by angels. All right. So they played a major role in our people receiving us law, statutes, and the commandments from on high. The angels came and delivered that. They're the messengers, right? Pursuant to the book of Acts, the 7th chapter, we're about to get in Hebrews chapter 1 to 12 on down. Here's another account, Acts chapter 7 and verse 53. Who have received the law by the disposition of angels and have not kept it. So our forefathers received the law by the angels and didn't keep it. But it wasn't just the angels, it was the Lord. And it wasn't the Most High getting off his throne. This was the Yahweh and the angels who rose up and came with many angels in spectacular fashion to be able to deliver this law unto Moses, right? And it says from his right hand went a fiery law for them. That's why it says it was written with the finger of God. We're led to believe that the chariots inscribed with the laser the laws and the commandments on a table of stone, because Moses wasn't up there with a chisel, right? And an axe, man, or whatever, a chisel and the device to be able to engrave that in the stone. It was a fiery law, like when you carve or laser something, etch it into stone. Yea, he loved the people, and all his saints are in thy hand, and they sat down at his feet. Every one shall receive of thy words. Moses commanded us a law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. And he was king in Jeshurun. Now, Jeshurun is representative of Israel, right? Now, if they are right in the blue letter, should say Yeshurun, if I'm not mistaken, and it means upright. See that upright one, a symbolic name for Israel, describing her ideal, should say his ideal character. See, that's what we're called Jeshurun or Yashawan in the Hebrew, right? Or Yashar, if I'm not mistaken. It means to be upright. So that's one of the titles given to us. So when it says he was king in Jeshurun, it means he was king in Israel. When the heads of the people and the tribes are gathered together. So now he's about to go to each blessing. He's going to start with Reuben. He's going to end all the way down, right? Now, these are the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And each tribe has a particular spirit, demeanor, behavior. They have different mannerisms. Yet they're all of the same stock. They all come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You understand? But each, just like you have children, if you have children, surely you understand that your children have different spirits. They may be twins and they have different spirits, right? They can be born far apart, close together, and they do things a little bit different. How they grow up is a little bit different. One may start walking sooner than the other. One may take a little bit longer. One, all of them are a little bit different. And each of the tribes are different in the spirit, especially in these times that we dwell in now. So you have Judah, which are your so-called Negroes or so-called African Americans. Benjamin, right, your so-called West Indians. Levi are your so-called Haitians. Simeon are your so-called Dominicans. Zebulon, so-called Guatemalans, the Panamanians. Ephraim, so-called Puerto Ricans. Manasseh are your so-called Cubans. Gad are your so-called North American Indians. Reuben are your so-called Seminole Indians. Naphtali are the so-called Argentinians to the Chileans. Asher, your so-called Colombians to Uruguayans. And Issachar are your so-called Mexicans. So the first tribe that's listed in Deuteronomy 33 is Reuben. Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. Now, Reuben is indeed the firstborn son of Israel, right? The firstborn son. Now, Reuben is Rehoboam in the Hebrew, right? And that means, behold, a son. Because when Leah had her firstborn son, she said, see, the Lord hath looked upon my affliction and hath given me a son. Right? Let's actually get that. Let's go to Genesis chapter 29. Right? Let's go to Genesis chapter 29 and 31. Right? It reads, and when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now, therefore, my husband will love me. So Reuben is the firstborn son. Now, by law, the firstborn son is who is supposed to inherit the birthright. So we know it went from Abraham, right? Isaac, Jacob. But the thing about those men is Isaac wasn't the firstborn, neither was Jacob, right? But this is how the Lord set it up. So when Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and you can see a foreshadowing that the next firstborn is not going to get that birthright, because Ishmael didn't get it. He was the firstborn between him and Isaac. Esau didn't get it. He was the firstborn between him and Jacob. So now it kind of lets you know, hey, look, Reuben, he the firstborn. Do you really think he's going to get the birthright? No. Initially, he had it, but he lost it, and it was given to Joseph. Right? Let me actually prove that. Let's go to the book of First Chronicles. Right? First Chronicles chapter 5 and 1. Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but for as much as he defiled his father's bed, but he slept with his father's concubine, right? His stepmom, if you can understand. His birthright was given unto the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel, and the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. So Reuben lost the firstborn. Lost his birthright due to fornication and lewd behavior. But indeed, he is still a firstborn. And his blessing is what in Deuteronomy 33? Let's go back to it. It reads, let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. Why? Because when the so-called white man came to the southeastern United States, that's where Reuben dwelt at. Reuben dwelt in Florida, Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana. They dwelt in that entire region. If we were to pull up a map, right? Let's see if we could get a map of Reubenites, Seminole Indians, right? Let's see territory. Now, they may just show Florida, but they have more than Florida. right? They had more than Florida when you look it up. And they were forcibly removed by the so-called white man, right, to the other side of the Mississippi. So they have Florida, but they also have parts of Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Louisiana. That's where your so-called Seminole Indians dwelt at. Now the Lord said, let Reuben live and not die. Reuben fought heavily, for lack of better terms, and mightily against the so-called white man. See, he was not decimated or exterminated, right? He wasn't rooted out the earth. He had a mighty army, mighty weaponry, mighty skills in war, and Reuben is still here to this day, man. Now, they have been pushed to other parts of the earth, but Reuben has been set up by the Most High to be one of the top tribes when it came to warfare, when it came to weaponry, when it came to battle tactics and battle formation, right? So the blessing upon Reuben is, even though in the midst of adversity, colonization, disease, widespread war, Reuben would still live valiantly until the day that they were removed and until the day of the Lord. And let not his men be few. Now, when you tie this in to Genesis, the 49th chapter, right? We may not go to Genesis for every tribe. 49 for every tribe, but, we'll go to them for the most part. Or this chapter, Genesis 49:3. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. So they were powerful people, man. Right? When you go to, I'm gonna have to open up another blue letter. The book of First Chronicles. There was really no other tribe greater. I believe that's First Chronicles. What did I have? 5:18, right? It reads, there was no other tribe greater in war than Reuben and even Gad, right? And Manasseh. First Chronicles 5:18, the sons of Reuben, your so-called Seminole Indians, and the Gadites, your so-called North American Indians, and the half of the tribe of Manasseh, right, your so-called Cubans, of valiant men, men able to bear a buckler and sword and to shoot with bow and skillful in war, were 44,703 score that went out to the war. You see that? So these men could deal with the buckler. A buckler is like a small shield, right? They can deal with the sword. They can deal with the bow. They can use any weapon. That's what it means in Genesis 49. They were the beginning of his strength and excellent in dignity and power. They had laws to govern themselves. That's what made them dignified. They were a upright people. They wore turbans, mitres. They had staffs in their hand. They had structure. They went to war. They didn't bow down when it came to the other tribes. A lot of those other tribes sold out. I'm going to just come out and say it. When I say other tribes, I mean so-called Native American tribes. They had your so-called 5 civilized tribes. Where is that at? Let me pull that up. Your 5 civilized tribes. Right? Now they got Seminole Indian. It reads, the 5 civilized tribes is a term used to refer to 5 major Native American nations in the Southeast, the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole. The term was applied by European Americans in the colonial and early federal period in the history of the United States. Now, a lot of tribes actually dealt with the so-called white man, right? On an intimate level. They gave their sons into their daughters and took on their daughters to their sons. They sold out for wealth and money and fame. Here's a map of your so-called tribes. Your Sioux, your Pawnee, Apache in the west, Navajo, right? Pomo. You got your Massachusetts, Iroquois, Pequot, Powhatan, Shawnee, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Creek, and then you have your Seminole. So your Seminole Indians lived up in this land right here. And they wasn't going for that, man. When I say they wasn't going for that, they weren't letting the so-called white man just come and influence them and just take over the land. Right? There's something called, where do we have it? Let me save that one. The Seminole Wars. The Seminole Wars, aka the Florida Wars, were a series of 3 military conflicts between Esau and Reuben that took place in Florida between 1816 and 1858. So that's a long time, huh? To be so-called technologically advanced and still be fighting against what they would call a primitive people, right? For over 30 years. The Seminoles are a Native American nation which coalesced in northern Florida during the 1700s when the territory was still a Spanish colonial possession. Tensions grew between the Seminoles and settlers and the newly independent United States in the early 1800s, mainly because enslaved people, many of Judites, regularly fled from Georgia into Spanish Florida. See that? So when Judah was fleeing from slavery, hey, a lot of them didn't go up north, man. Some went to Florida because Reuben had a relationship with them and Judah had a relationship. That's how you know that they're the same people. A lot of the Reubenites took on the Judites. A lot of brothers from Florida think that Judites, hey, you might be a Reubenite, man. If your family is back from, that Central Florida, South Florida region, you might be a Reubenite. It reads, prompting slave owners to conduct slave raids across the border. A series of cross-border skirmishes escalated to the First Seminole War in 1817, when the double, Andrew Jackson, led an incursion into the territory over Spanish objections. You see that? Jackson's forces destroyed Seminole and Black Seminole towns and briefly occupied Pensacola before withdrawing in 1818. Then there was another war, right? I'm not going to read this whole article, right? But I encourage brothers to read this, man, right? Read what happened between the Seminole Indians and the so-called white man. And it was killing these guys, man. It was killing thousands of so-called white people. They killed more Edomites than any other so-called Native American tribe. So they went to town, right? They used excellent weapons, tools, battle axes, tomahawks. Seminole used war clubs and tomahawks during the skirmishes fought between tribes with the early settlers. Both are striking weapons and best when used at short range. The tomahawk was originally a hatchet-like weapon with a stone head. Iron heads replaced stone as the metalworking skills spread from tribe to tribe. So they were throwing tomahawks at these guys, man. These Edomites they didn't know what to do. They didn't have an answer. They had a blowgun from a switch cane in the bamboo plant. That's what we read, that they can have the sword, buckler, shield. They had blowguns, darts, tomahawks, bows, arrows. Right? They got hands on that rifle. Right? They had canoes, fishing spears. So they was going to town. Right? The Reubenites were going to town. Right? Here's a little bit more, right? This is from simtribe.com, right? And this is made by actual Reubenites. So it reads, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it reads, we Seminole have lived in Florida for thousands of years. Yeah, really, they came over here after the time of that Assyrian exile. The Assyrian captivity exile, you had a lot of Reubenites that actually came over here. And a lot of other tribes that came to this side of the world, man. That's what Second Ezra tells you, the 13th chapter, 40 on down. Here you have the so-called white man and his peak of his wisdom still telling you and convincing and persuading the masses of people that they came across the Bering Strait some 30,000 odd years ago. And they crossed the land bridge from Russia to Alaska. That's madness, man. That's not in the Bible. Then they started from Alaska, then they came down to Canada, then they dealt with America for a minute, then they kind of went down to South America. Some took a boat to the islands, and they went all the way down to Argentina. and Chile, man. Right? That's not biblical. So it reads, when Seminole have lived in Florida for thousands of years. It's like we Seminole have lived in Florida for thousands of years. Our ancestors were the first people to come to Florida. You see that? That links up with 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. Because the Most High said that they would come to a land. Right? Let's actually get that. Right? Where never mankind dwelt. I'm going to just get straight to the point. 2nd Ezra chapter 13 and verse 40. These are the 10 tribes. Now your 10 tribes are right here. Issachar, Asher, Reuben. So like Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, Reuben, Gad, Manasseh, Ephraim, Zebulun, Simeon, and you add Dan as well. Right? Those were the 10 tribes. It reads, those are the 10 tribes which are carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king. Right? That's around 722, 723 BC. Whom Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so they came into another land. So they were brought from Israel and brought to the land of the Medes. Some were brought to parts of Assyria, right? Some were brought to Nineveh. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. That's why it says in that article, they said we were the first ones over here. You got the so-called white man saying, oh, no, we discovered America. We got here in the land and we saw these people. No, they were already over here. The Most High said where never mankind dwelt, that they might keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they did keep the commandments of the Lord for the most part, right? So it reads, we were the first people to come to Florida. Our ancestors were connected by family and cultures to others across North America. So the Gadites and the Reubenites, they knew each other. From the Atlantic coast to the Mississippi River, from the Gulf of Mexico to the Great Lakes. So all of the tribes were connected. Your Iroquois, right? Your Mohawk, right? Your Shawnee, your Sioux. They are now called the Mississippi culture, and the tradition still exists among Seminole tribes and other tribes today. Right, here's the point. We were in Florida when the Spanish arrived. They met our ancestors, who they called by different names. The Miskoski people, the Muskegee people, the Calusa people, and other Native American tribes. The Spanish brought with them diseases that devastated our ancestors. Within 100 years, the new diseases had killed 9 out of 10 of the native peoples of the Americans. So they wiped out 90% of the population. See, the so-called white man didn't just bring the gun over here, right? He brought tuberculosis. He brought hay fever, the flu, what they call influenza, smallpox, varicella. That's what they call your chicken pox, right? They brought the scarlet fever, right? They brought everything over here, man. The common cold, itching and scratching. They brought all, because the so-called white man was living up with these animals, man. Popping these animals. He wasn't bathing himself. He didn't have a natural plumbing system, so he had his feces mixed up with his food in the middle of the streets, urine everywhere. I mean, he's a beast. He's a vile man. So he came over here with those sicknesses and brought that all over here. Remember, that so-called white man, Prince, I believe Harry, one of these princes, he said, in the likeness that I am reincarnated, I would like to come back as a deadly virus. And we bring that out all the time, huh? The so-called white man says, if I could come back on the earth, I don't want to come back as George Washington. I don't want to come back as Alexander the Great or none of these so-called great white men. If I want to come back, I want to come back as a disease. He said that, man. So that's his MO. Right, let's read them. We gathered from a, now you can say prove it. Okay, well, let's prove it. And the event that I'm gonna have to kind of let's see, deadly virus. I'll just put some words together. See that Prince Philip said that. So-called Sith Lord, right? It reads, in the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve overpopulation. All right, so that's the devil for you. That is your local devil. Let's read on. We gathered from across Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. So that's where they dwelt at. Those borders did not exist for us. Our culture, our home, and our way of life joined us together. We defended our homes and our people and became a refuge for those who sought freedom. So they was mighty, man. They went out of their way to protect the so-called black man, the Judites, who were in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, looking for a way out. And they went south, and then you had your Reubenites say, hey, look, you're at home. We got you. Right? And they said, well, I don't have no money. Don't worry about it. We got a bed for you. We have food for you. We have clothing for you. We'll bet you have somewhere you can wash yourself. We have a pillow, and you're at home. Here's my daughter. You can have my daughter. Right? So we took care of one another, man. You know? They said this is what Reuben said. We became a refuge for those who sought freedom from conquest and slavery. For this, we were seen as a threat. So that they wasn't like a lot of these other so-called Native American tribes, right? They wasn't, huh? They were a little bit more powerful, a little bit more dignified, a little bit more austere, a little bit stronger, because they were the beginning of Jacob's strength. That's why it says, let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. Right? These men upheld the law. Right? They knew about cities of refuge. Right? They knew about being a safe haven. They knew the classic. Right? Leviticus 19 and 17. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. Thou shalt not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord. Right? So that's why they say we were seen as a threat. We would not be controlled by the Spanish or brought into their mission colonies. They called us Cimarrones. I know I'm kind of butchering that, right? So bear with me. Cimarrons, the Spanish word for runaways or wild ones. Some of us saw this name as an insult. Some of us saw it as a badge of honor. They said we can't control these guys, man. We can subdue these other Native American tribes, man. But these damn Reubenites are giving us hell. So they had like a Maccabees kind of spirit. But we continue to trade with the people of the Spanish and other European colonies as we had traded for centuries with our neighbors. We made friends, we made enemies, and we kept our culture as the Europeans struggled to expand their reach. In time, the Spanish brought their cattle and their leather from us. I'm going to read a little bit more. We were in Florida when the invasion began, starting half a century of warfare with the United States. We watched as the man who led the invasion was elected to be the 7th president of the United States. As president, he signed a law breaking all treaties the United States had made with Native people. This law stated that all Native peoples east of the Mississippi River be removed west. That's called your Indian Removal Act. When they tried to force us to leave, breaking the word that had been given, we fought for our home. They said, we're not going nowhere, man. The hell you mean we got to uproot and leave? So they grabbed their sword, grabbed their bow and arrows, and they start chopping off heads. Abiaka, Kochi, Mikanspi, Osceola, Holada, Miko, and other great warriors fought for their families. and their way of life. Throughout these years under siege, many of us were killed, captured, or sent west to reservations far from our home. Right? So this was a big deal, man. Right? It reads, the world, I'm going to jump down. The world, oh, hold on. Let me see this. They say we are a sovereign government with our own schools, police, and courts. We run one of the largest cattle operations in the United States. We own Hard Rock hotels, casinos, businesses. We still continue our traditions of sewing, patchwork, chick tea building, and alligator wrestling. The world has changed. They wrestling alligators, man. As it always has, and we have adapted as we always have while keeping our ways, our culture, and our lives to remain the unconquered Seminole tribe of Florida, right? Unconquered Seminole tribe of Florida. Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his days be few, right? So these are your so-called Seminole Indians. They even have people called the so-called Black Seminoles. And a lot of those were Jews that fled amongst the so-called Native Americans. All right. And they became freed men. And they became an alliance right there. Now they call them Afro-Seminoles. So a lot of Judites, like I said, in South Florida, you think that you're a Judite, you might be a Reubenite. You know? Remember, it's going to be 12,000 of each tribe. Everybody can't be a Judite, right? You're going to have 12,000 of even your so-called northern tribes. So that's the blessing upon Reuben. Verse 7 in Deuteronomy chapter 33. It reads, and this is the blessing of Judah. And he said, hear, Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him unto his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou in help to help him from his enemies. So Judah it's like it says, hear the Lord, the voice of Judah, bring him into his people. So the Most High is going to use Judah as a leader amongst the tribes. And the Most High is saying, let his hands be sufficient for him, right? And be thou in help to him from his enemies, because Judah is in a different situation. Judah's in a situation that the other tribes may not be in. See, Benjamites can actually go to Jamaica if they decide to, or St. Thomas, St. Lucia. Issacharites, they can dwell in Mexico, right? Have some type of, peace, right? Your so-called Ephraimites, they can go back to Puerto Rico, right? A lot of tribes, all these tribes have a home base, for lack of better terms. They come to America, but they can kind of go back. Where the hell is Judah going, man? See, Moses knew it would be so bad in the spirit amongst the Judites that he said, let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou in help to him from his enemies. Because we dwell hand in hand with our enemies. That's why you have the main racist Jim Crow laws, murder against the Judites. Judah's taking the most heat, man, from the police department, from the so-called white man. Judah's catching hell, man. So that if this blessing wasn't put in there, Judah may have been wiped off the earth. In the early colonial plantation days, all of the buck breaking, the Willie Lynch, the damn murder, the lies, the experiments, the killings. If it wasn't of the grace of the Most High, like I tell you in Lamentation 3, and we would have all been consumed, man. So all praise to Yahweh Shai for putting that spirit on Moses to say, hey, let them be help to their enemies, right? Or let his hands be sufficient for him. Give him some grace to survive, right? And a land of the living. Lamentations chapter 3 and 21. This I recall to my mind. Therefore have I hope. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. So if it wasn't of Yahweh Shai's mercies, Kasadium in the Hebrew, then we would have all been consumed. We'd have all been robbed, pillaged, raped to death, plundered, lied to, pillaged. If it has not been for the Lord's mercies upon the Judites. So that's what that latter part of that blessing is a preservation, petition to Yahweh Basham Yahushua from Moses that Judah can be preserved in the land of their enemies. Right? Psalms chapter 124 and verse 1. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, now may Israel say. See that? If it had been for the Lord, what the hell would we be doing, man? We'd be in the world. We'd be done. Judah would have been exterminated off the earth if it had not been the Lord. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side when men rose up against us, then they had swallowed us up quick when their wrath was kindled against us. Right? So the Lord has allowed us to still be alive here, man. Surprisingly, after 400 plus odd years. Right? And there's things that happen to all of the tribes. We're not knocking that, right? All of the tribes have felt the hand of the Lord, right? Every tribe. But we're going through each blessing, right? You got people saying, well, no, well, Gad really had it the worst. Okay, Asher had, well, it's not a competition who had it the worst. We're just stating the facts as we go through the blessings. No, yeah, because Ephraim, yeah, that's what I thought, because Ephraim, you know what we went through. Yeah, and Benjamin, all of the tribes caught hell, man. And Daniel 9, it says, for under the whole heaven hath not been done as it hath been done to who? To Israel. They don't just say one tribe. Right? It reads, then they had swallowed us up quick when their wrath was kindled against us. Then the waters had overwhelmed us. The streams had gone over our soul. Now the waters and the streams represent the so-called white man. The proud waters had gone over our soul. Blessed be the Lord who hath not given us as a prey to their teeth. Because the Most High could have put the spirit on Esau to just kill us, man. He did not even put us on ships, just kill us. But blessed be the Lord who hath not given us as a prey to their teeth, man. Our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken and we are escaped, right? We're in this truth, right? We're alive, right? We have wisdom, understanding, knowledge, right? Our help is in the name of Yahweh, Basham Yahushua, who made heaven and earth. That's why the blessing says, and be thou in help to him from his enemies. Because we're dealing, like I said, we're dealing hand in hand with Esau, man. Toe to toe, neck to neck, lynchings, castrations. Blessed be the Lord. What does it say in Psalms? It's like you. Blessed be the Lord who hath not given us as a prey to their teeth, man. See, the Lord said, even now there is a remnant according to the election of grace. Think about it, man. The Lord said in Ezekiel 35 that they have a perpetual hatred. Let's get that. Ezekiel chapter 35 and 5. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred. Who's the thou? Esau. Who did they perpetually hate? Israel, right? And they really hate the Judite because they know Yahushua came from the bloodline of Judah. They know that David was a Judite and David put them in slavery. They know it's something about the Judite man. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword and the time of their calamity and the time that their iniquity had an end. So with the spirit of an everlasting hatred, you would have to go above and beyond to harm a people. You would have to lock them up, run experiments on them, commit an entire genocide, just wipe them out. But it's not up to Esau, it's up to the Most High. And that goes back to the blessing that we were given, right? Let's read this again. And this is the blessing of Judah. And he said, hear, Lord, the voice of Judah, right? Now the Most High actually put the spirit of Moses for us to hear our prayers too, man. Hear the voice of Judah, right? Our prayers, our cries, our tears. You know, this is a powerful blessing right here, man. Simply for us to be heard. And bring him unto his people. So bring Judah with Ephraim, Judah to Benjamin, Judah to Levi, Judah to Manasseh. And Judah's pretty much the trailblazers of the ministry and to be able to wake up the 12 tribes of the children of Israel, right? That goes back to Zechariah chapter 12 and 7. Let's deal with it, right? Let's go to Zechariah chapter 12 and verse 7. The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. So that's why Judah's going to raise up first. And Judah has always really been, when you read Genesis, Judges, Judah has always been the man, the action Jackson man, right? The man who was the forefront, the man that was leading. He's always had a leader-like spirit, right? Let's prove that. When you go to Judges, when it was time to inherit the land, who was putting in that action that worked first? It came to Judah, right? Judges 1:1. It reads, now after the death of Joshua, it came to pass that the children of Israel asked the Lord, saying, who shall go up for us against the Canaanites first to fight against them? Who's going to fight against our enemies first? What did the Lord say? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand. So the Most High said, look, who's going to kill the enemy the quickest, the fastest, subdue the land and be obedient? Judah, right? They're going to go up first, and they're going to set the example of how I want you other tribes to kill these damn enemies, bro. And I'm going to deliver the land into their hand. So Judah has, even when he was amongst his brethren, he always had that voice, you know, and those words to make things happen, bro. This is Genesis chapter 42 and verse 36. Right? And Jacob their father said unto them, me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, right? Because remember, Jacob thought Joseph was dead. It's lucky. And Simeon is not, because Simeon was taken captive by Joseph. And will ye take Benjamin away? All these things are against me. Because the deal was, bring your youngest brother to me. That's what Joseph told him. But Joseph was already gone in the eyes of Jacob. Simeon taken captive, Jacob said, you're not taking away Benjamin. I would not let you take away Benjamin. And Reuben, so check out what Reuben did and how Jacob responded to Reuben. And then hear what Judah did, how the Lord responded to Judah. Because Judah always had a different spirit, right? And Reuben said unto his father, saying, slay my two sons, if I bring him not to thee, and deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. So that's a big thing. He said, look, slay my two sons. You would have thought, look, I believe you, Reuben. I'm going to let Benjamin go with you. But Reuben, he didn't have that spirit, man. Jacob didn't really take that serious. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead and he is left alone. If mischief be fallen by the way in the which ye go, then shall ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. So Reuben's words didn't mean nothing. Even if he said, slay my two sons, he said, no, he's still not going. But then Judah, in Genesis 43 and 1 and 2, it reads, and it came to pass when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said unto him, go again, buy us a little food. And Judah, you see that? And Judah spake unto him, saying, the man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. So Judah kind of spoke up, man. Now, I'm not going to read this whole account, but Jacob actually was, I don't want to say getting on his father, but he was getting his father to really see what was going on. And Judah said, I will be a surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him. If I bring him not unto thee and set him before thee, then let me bear the blame forever. So Reuben said, hey, slay my two sons. If I don't bring Benjamin back, Jacob said, nah, I don't believe that. Your words don't really mean nothing. Judah said, hey, look, let me bear the blame if I don't bring Benjamin back. Jacob said, oh, wow, Judah said this. Okay, well, he must mean it. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of honor. Look, his words mean something. So that's why Jacob let Benjamin go, because of the words that Judah said. That's why Judah went up first in Judges 1 and 4. Right? Let's go to Psalms chapter 76 and verse 1. And Judah is the Most High known. His name is great in Israel. Right? So the Lord is known in Judah. Jerusalem is in the land of Judah for a reason. Right? The city of David is in the land of Judah. Because out of Judah, right? I'm not going to do a whole breakdown on Judah, right? But out of Judah came the kings. Right? Let's read that again. First Chronicles 5 and 1. Actually, verse 2. For Judah prevailed above his brethren, right? In judgment, in order, in obedience, and zeal. For Judah prevailed above his brethren, and of him came the chief ruler. But the birthright was given to Joseph. So the chief ruler is the king. There's only one king, technically, right, that didn't come out of Judah, and that's Saul. Right? But every other king were Judites. They were set up to be the kings of Israel. See, like I said, every tribe has a different spirit. Judah has a different spirit than Levi. No tribe is better than another tribe. They're all going to receive salvation, but Benjamin got a different spirit. They have gifts and things that Judah can't do. Judah could do things that maybe Asher can't do. Issachar had understanding of. These are different talents that the Lord has given each one of his sons. Let's go to Genesis chapter 49. Genesis chapter 49 and verse 8. Judah, and Judah in the Hebrew is what? Yahwadah. Right? Yahwadah, which means praise Yahweh. Right? Or thanks to Yahweh. Or the water Yahweh. Right? Because when Leah bore Judah, she said, thank you, Yahweh. Or the water da Yahweh. Or praise Yahweh. That's what the word Judah means. They are the praise of all the tribes. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. So really, Judah is the one who the tribes look up to. Now you can say, well, I don't look up to the Judah. I'm my own man, right? I'm a Benjamite, and as a Benjamite will I always be. That's fine, brother. That's fine, right? But all of the tribes tend to look at Judah. Judah becomes the pioneer for innovation in the earth when it comes to music, fashion, dress, speech, walking, style, dance, rhythm, clothes, right? Judah sets the trend on all things, man. I mean, let's be real, right? People are looking at Judah. And however Judah's dressing, that's how everybody else is dressing. If Judah's wearing Jordans, everybody's going to put Jordans on. If Judah got a hat on backwards, they looking at Judah, they're going to put their hat on backwards. They know it's something about that Judite man that they just do things different, man. They don't just go with the flow. They create the flow. They go against the grain and they do things, whatever they do is gold. They do the chains. And when people start wearing gold chains, Judah did that, man. The big rope chains, right? When they had the bucket hats, the Kangos. Jake had the bell bottoms, right? Disco dance. Jake invented rock and roll. Now you can say, no, Nickelback invented rock and roll, right? They didn't invent rock and roll. We invented rock and roll, man. And Mos Def got a song he put out a long time ago called Rock and Roll. He was kind of going into how the so-called white man stole rock and roll, man. Right? Chuck Berry, look, we had a lot of people, man. Blues. We invented country music. Country music is just a spinoff of blues. And rock and roll is just a spinoff of blues. So we invented rock and roll, We invented country, rap music, hip hop, jazz. Oh, well, what about Kenny G? The hell with Kenny G, man. Right? We got everybody, man. So all of the music of the earth, literally all of the music of the earth, unless you listen to Sticks and Stones, came from Judah. Straight up and down. Now I know I'm gonna rub feathers the wrong way with this one. Right? Now you can say, well, not now. I don't know about that one, but hey, Judah got the best cooks, man. I know all hell may break loose, but hey, Judah set the standard. Now you can say, well, what about Bobby Flay? Right? We're not dealing with Esau and all of his madness, man. So Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Right? Let's see with the gold chain. Thinking the 80s. And everybody start doing the gold chain, man. You know? Everybody start rocking the gold chain, the afros. You got Mr. T. Is that Slick Rick? What's the goddamn Rakim or Big Daddy Kane? Right? So everybody start being Judah. Right? You got Jordans. It's like I'm definitely not shopping. Everybody start rocking the Jordans and the clothes, man, that Judah has. So Judah set the standard on everything, right? We can go all on and on and on all day. All right, let's read on. In Genesis chapter 49. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. See that the Lord said your hand is going to be in the neck of your enemies. You're going to be dealing with the so-called white man toe to toe. Right? Toe to toe, and it's going to be nothing but controversy. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. So all of the tribes are going to bow down before Judah, because out of Judah comes who? Yahushua. Right? The Lord said, every knee shall bow. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art going up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? Right? So Judah has been docile for far too long, pacified, weak, lowly. Now the Lord said, who shall rouse him up? Man, who's going to put the spirit on Judah to be that lion, that predator, that apex predator, that top of that food chain? Who's going to get Judah to stand up for injustice and crimes and sins against his people? What is it going to take for Judah to rise up and come back to the Most High and be stirred up by the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua? Who's going to rouse Judah up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So the kings are going to remain amongst the Judites until Yahushua returns. That's Shiloh. It means peaceable one, or the peaceable one, right? And until Yahushua, the gathering of the people is going to be. All right? So let's go back to Deuteronomy 33. So we dealt with Judah, right? Verse 8, dealing with the next tribe. And of Levi, he said, let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massah, and whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah. So Levi in the Hebrew is a lawyer. Now, his name is a lawyer because in Genesis 29, Leah said, now will my husband be joined unto me. Let's get that in Genesis chapter 29. Right? So she had her third son, Levi. Genesis chapter 29 and verse 34. And she, meaning in Leah, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. You see that? So she had 3 sons. That third son, she said, that's the deal. He's going to love me over Rachel. He's finally going to be with me. My husband is going to be joined unto me. That's what lawyer means. But in a spirit, Levi is joined to the Most High. And Levi is what joins Israel to the Most High, because they're the priests of the Most High, to do the sacrifices, to keep that band between Yahweh, Ba'asham Shai, and his people. All right. So when you're dealing with this blessing of Levi, it says, let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One. Now the Awarium wa Thummim, right, the Urim and Thummim, are elements given to the priest of the Lord to be able to exercise perfect judgment in the midst of a tumult or confusion or uncertainty. If we look up the Urim and Thummim, they often display them as stones, some a white stone, a black stone, but they were elements or stones given to the priests where Yahweh Ba'asham Shai would tap into those things, and they would work in their mind, and they would have visions and see what actually happened, that they can execute perfect, flawless judgment. Right, let's prove that. Let's go to the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 28. And we'll see if we can kind of get an image of that, right? Or what an artist depiction will have. Exodus 28 and 29. And Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel and the breastplate of judgment upon his heart, when he goeth in into the holy place, for a memorial before the Lord continually. Because Aaron was the high priest in order to deal with the entire nation of Israel. Now here's the point. And thou shalt put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim. Now Urim is light. Thummim means perfection. This is the light and the perfection. The spirit of Yahweh Ba'asham Shai embodied in these elements to be able to give man a perfect heart of judgment. Right now, you can't find the Urim and the Thummim now. Nobody knows where it is. Right? It's disclosed off the face of the earth. The so-called white man don't have it. Amalek don't have it. And even if they did, they can't use it. It's only created to deal with a particular bloodline. If you don't have the bloodline of Aaron's sons, then the Urim and the Thummim is not going to work for you. You could be a Judite, you could be a Benjamite, you could be an Ephraimite. If you pick up that Urim and Thummim, it might burn your damn head, man. But if the Levite has it, then it's power and strength unto him. Right? So in that breastplate, they will put the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be upon Aaron's heart when he goeth before the Lord. And Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before the Lord continually. So let's pull up the Urim and the Thummim. Right? Urim and Thummim. See that? It says perfections. It really means light and perfection. Are elements of the Hoshen, right? They say Hoshen, right? Salakia. Right? Breastplate worn by the high priest attached to the ephod. They are connected with cleromancy. See, they said it's connected with cleromancy, right? With divination by casting lots. So really it deals with a high level of righteous, so-called divination, so man can understand the judgment. All right. Now we pull up an image of what it may have looked like. So they would have the 12 stones for each of the tribes. And in that breastplate, well, let me go back. They would have these mysterious stones. Well, let's go back. Called the Urim and the Thummim. The light and the perfection. And they would be upon that breastplate. See that? They'll be upon that breastplate of the high priest. See that? Urim and the Thummim. So it reads, let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massah whom thou didst prove at the waters of Meribah. Right? When you read Exodus, the 17th chapter, and I believe Numbers, the 20th chapter, you read about what happened at Massah and Meribah, right? When the water was taken out of the rock, and it was a test to see if these men would still serve the Most High. And Moses and Aaron were at those situations, right? When these things happen. Let's prove it. Let's go to Exodus, the 17th chapter. Right? Exodus chapter 17. I want to get straight to the point. All right, Exodus 17 and verse 3. And the people thirsted for water, and the people murmured against Moses and said, wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? That's that murmuring, lack of faith, scoffing spirit. And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, what shall I do unto this people? They be ready. I'm almost ready to stone me. So he was stressed out. And dealing with millions of people, man. You're only one man. And Jake always got something to say. They're always complaining about something. They're never satisfied. Moses said, what am I going to do to get this people water? They're ready to kill me. And the Lord said unto Moses, go on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thine hand, and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock and Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So he said, take your rock, take your staff, smite the rock, and waters are going to come out. And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? So you have to read Exodus in order to understand what Deuteronomy is referencing. Deuteronomy 33, when it says, whom thou didst prove at the waters of Meribah, just dealing with Moses and Aaron, dealing with Israel in the wilderness. When they scoffed the Lord among us or not. That's amongst the Levites. The Levites were proven by Moses, right? And Aaron. Verse 9, still dealing with the blessing of Levi, who said unto his father and to his mother, I have not seen him. Neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor knew his own children. For they had observed thy word and kept thy covenant. Now, what does this part mean when it says that Levi said unto his father and his mother, I have not seen him? It means that Levi is keeping a particular commandment right here. And we're going to show you that. When it reads, neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor knew his own children, for they have observed thy word and kept thy covenant. There's a commandment that they're keeping and found in Deuteronomy, right? That actually is the foundation of that blessing. This is Deuteronomy chapter 1 and verse 17. Ye shall not respect persons in judgment, but ye shall hear the small as well as the great. Ye shall not be afraid of the face of man, for the judgment is the Most High's, and the cause that is too hard for you, bring it unto me, and I will hear it. So when it says in Deuteronomy 33 that they didn't know their father or their mother or acknowledge their brethren, it's going into them keeping the law of not being a respecter of persons. And I'm going to give the account. Levi will do things that the other tribes won't do in order to keep the laws and the commandments. Phineas, Mattathias, the Levites, Levi himself, they don't care who you are. You could be your father. You could be their mother. You could be a brother. You could be a sister. And if you get in the way of them keeping the commandments, and they'll even kill you, man. That's that zeal of the Levites. They were created with a particular zeal because they have been joined to the Most High. Right, let's get this. This is Genesis chapter 34. I'm not going to read this whole account. When you read this account, Dinah was raped by the Canaanites, the Hittites, if I'm not mistaken. Levi and Simeon are about to raid the city after they outwitted them and supplanted these Africans and told them, circumcise your nation, and then we'll let you deal with our wives, right? And we'll do a trade with you and form an alliance. They waited to the third day they were circumcised. Then they came upon the city boldly and slew all of the males. Let's read that. Genesis chapter 34 and verse 25. I'm going to show you something about Levi. And it came to pass on the third day when they were sore, meaning the Canaanites, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword and came upon a city boldly and slew all the males. So they didn't sneak in. They blew the trumpet, they had their fire, and they came upon a city boldly. Two men destroyed an entire city. Two Israelites can wipe out an entire nation with their outwitting them and their mind and with their strength. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. So Simeon and Levi slew everybody. Then Judah and the rest of the tribes came and robbed them. So it is what it is. They took their sheep and their oxen. This is the bloodline we come from, man. We get down, right? We get down. 12 sons. That's a whole army right there. They took their sheep, and guess what it says? The sons of Jacob. So I'm led to believe Joseph was in this thing, man. You know, a lot of people said Joseph wouldn't have did that. Benjamin wouldn't have did that. And they was in this thing, man. It said the sons of Jacob came upon a slain and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep and their oxen and their asses and that which was in the city and that which was in the field, and all their wealth and all their little ones. They took kids captive, man. And their wives took they captive and spoiled even all that was in the house. So they robbed them. But here's what happened. Here's why Deuteronomy 33 says, who said unto his father and to his mother, I have not seen him. Because here, listen to this account right here. And Jacob, that's their father, right, said to Simeon and Levi, ye have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. So he said, you made me stink, right? You started a war, right? You shouldn't have started this war, right? You're causing too much right now. And they said, and they talked back to their father. This is what Levi said. And Simeon, and they said, should he deal with our sister as with the harlot? So he talked back to his father, man. He didn't really care about what his father was talking about. He has so much zeal. He raped my sister. I'm not trying to hear nothing you talking about. So they have a particular blind zeal sometimes, man, where they don't care if you're Jacob. They'll talk back to you, man. They don't care if you're your mother, your brother, your sister, a friend. If you are getting in their way from what they want to do according to the law, then it's going to be a problem, right? Now here's another account. Let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 32. This Exodus, this after they set the two golden calves up, right? They set the two golden calves up, and they rose up to eat and play. So they was freaking off and serving other gods, right? Now this Exodus chapter 32 and verse 25. And Moses came down, and Moses was hot, man. He was wroth when he saw the people wholly given to idolatry. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies, but then they were in sin. Then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? Let him come unto me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together unto him. How come it say all the sons of Judah? When Moses said who is on the Lord's side, surely the sons of Manasseh should have came, and even the sons of Ephraim. Well, what about the sons of Joseph? Moses said, who is on the Lord's side? And immediately, all the sons of Levi, hey, I'm on the Lord's side. Because it's in their spirit, huh? And he said unto them, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. So the Levites had to kill their brother, their companion, their mothers, their fathers, and they did it with a straight face. A lot of other tribes couldn't do that. They would have said, oh, my mother will give her. No, Levi say, it is what it is. This is what the Most High wants. I will do it. I will be obedient. I will kill my mother. I will slay my son. I have to slay my brother. This is what God has said. So shall it be. And really only the Levites could do that. Right? They have that kind of mind to do whatever it takes. Can my mother come into the truth? Right? She's eating pork. Should I do so and so? A Levite might say, hey, look, man. I talked to her once. I talked to her twice. She not getting it. It is what it is. Hey, the brother Alazar and Sakari, I'm gonna put words in his mouth, but I believe he said that he called his mother the devil, man. You know, because she's a so-called white woman. And I could be wrong. I don't want to put words. I believe he said, hey, look, if you have to kill her, you could kill her, man. He's a Levite. You might say, well, that's still his mother. You know, what about, you still got to, hey, look, man. A lot of things that the Levites say or that they do, it might not make sense to the average man. But a Levite's going to get it. Right? A Levite's going to get it. Those are your so-called Haitians. You know? So they had to slay. I'm going to read this again. And he said unto them, thus said the Lord God of Israel, put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother. So these people was running. You got to picture this, man. Here come the Levites. They was running and running. Levite throw a sword at him, hit him in the back. Then he take his sword out. He see his mother. Son, no, son, please. I'm your mother. Look, it's me. Thrust his mother through. This is the will of the Lord. Take it out. Right? Then his brother running away. His brother chop his leg. Hey, this was a big deal. This was a big deal. All right. And every man is companion and every man is neighbor. Exodus 32 and 28. And the children of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And there fell of the people that day 3,000 men. So they had to kill 3,000 of their own people. And they don't care who you are. Let's go to Numbers chapter 25. Let's get two more accounts. Numbers chapter 25 and verse 7. And when Phinehas, now Phinehas is a Levite, right? And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. So you have the people weeping. There was a great plague that just happened for dealing with these heathen women. This man rises up and takes his heathen women in the midst of the congregation while they're crying and weeping from idolatry. Phinehas sees him, a Levite. He gets up and takes a javelin, a spear in his hand, and went after the man of Israel. They didn't say the man of Edom. He went after an Israelite and to his tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly, so the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. So you had a Levite who killed another Israelite, man. Out of zeal. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, hath turned my wrath away from the children of Israel, when he was zealous for my sake among them, that I consume not the children of Israel in my jealousy. So the Lord said that was zealous right there. We have to get rid of this guy that was causing the plague. Moses had zeal. Did not Moses slay an Egyptian and hide him in the sand? Moses got down, man. Moses killed the guy. Moses didn't just part the Red Sea and come down with 2 tables of stone. Probably snapped this guy's neck, man. took his sword out, thrust them through, right? Moved the sand out the way with his hand and threw him on the sand and kept it pushing, man. This is what the Levites do. Because why? He saw an Egyptian smiting his brother. So he couldn't take it. And he slew him and hit him in the sand. Let's get one more account of these Levites, right? And their mighty zeal, man, that they have for Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, right? Let's go to First Maccabees, right? The second chapter, right? That's why really when it came to so-called independence, right, and liberation, the Haitians, so-called Haitians, were the first ones to actually gain their freedom by killing the so-called white man. They were poisoning them, murdering them, slaying them with the sword. The Levites did that. Judah didn't do that, man. Judah had a few men after Nat Turners. They had some guys, you know. They were unsuccessful, but Levi was successful. And they didn't care. And they got Haiti from the French. And the French were a world power at the time. The French wasn't nobodies. They were somebodies. It was a big deal. And they slew the French with the edge of the sword. First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse, I'll start at 23. So you had the king that came and told Mattathias to offer up swine's flesh on the altar. And he said, if you offer up swine's flesh on the altar, we'll make you famous. We'll make you rich. You'll be the king's friend. He said, I'm not doing that. Then you had another Israelite that said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get down with it. And let's see what Mattathias did. Now, when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews and a sight of all to sacrifice on the altar, which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. So this one Israelite said, I don't care about that. I'm going to offer up my pork on the altar. I don't care about that mighty speech Mattathias gave. Which thing, when Mattathias saw, now Mattathias is a Levite, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled. Neither could he forbear to show his judgment according, to show his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. So he ran and slew this Israelite, man. Same thing the Levites did in Exodus. Same thing Phinehas did. That's why in Deuteronomy 33, it says, for they have observed thy word and kept thy covenant. They don't care who you are. There's no respect of person. They'll kill you. That's part of their blessings. To have a strong zeal and be joined to the Most High. They shall teach Jacob thy judgments and Israel thy law. Let's get that. They shall put incense before thee and whole burnt sacrifice upon thine altar. So let's get that they shall teach Israel thy judgments. Let's get that in Leviticus chapter 10. Leviticus chapter 10 and verse 11. And that ye may teach, this is the Lord talking to the Levites, the children of Israel, all the statutes which the Lord had spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. So the Levites are commanded to teach the word of the Most High. That's not given to the Judites. It's not given to the Benjamites. It's not given to the Ephraimites or the Asherites. That's strictly for the Levites. They're supposed to be experts in the law, right? Experts in what's righteous and what's wicked. See how all of the sons now you're saying they all have different gifts. We covered Judah and a spirit the Most High gave them. We're dealing with Levi and a spirit the Most High gave them. Reuben and a spirit that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai has given them. Right? These are some of the tribes that the Lord had blessed, right? That we're covering. And these are their mannerisms that they have been given, and their demeanor that they have been given, their personality, their gifts, right? That the Lord hath opened their minds to have. So that's why it says they shall teach Jacob thy judgments and Israel thy law. They shall put incense before thee and whole burnt sacrifice upon thine altar. Right? Let's prove that they did the incense. When you go to Luke, the first chapter, remember that was done by a Levite. John the Baptist was a Levite. His father was a Levite. You see the zeal that John the Baptist had. He told Philip to his face, or Herod, He said, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. That's what John the Baptist said, man. He went out of his way and zeal and told the so-called white man, you can't commit adultery, man. And he got beheaded for that. He had zeal, man. He was out there in the wilderness, locust and wild honey. Elijah was calling fire down from heaven. So these Levites, man, they got a different spirit, right? Luke chapter 1 and 9. According to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And that was Zechariah's job as a Levite. That's the blessing that Moses gave them, that they should put incense before thee and whole burnt sacrifice upon thine altar. And they're the ones that would take the animals and put the sacrifices upon the altar. That's Levi. Bless Yahweh, Bashmi Abashai, his substance, and accept the work of his hands. Smite through the loins of them that rise up against him, and of them that hate them, that they rise not again. And that also links up with the Maccabees. The Lord destroyed Nicanor, Georgius, right? Apollonius, Antiochus Epiphanes IV, smote him in his loins, went inside of his intestines and made it rot from the inside out, and killed them in a strange land. And those that hated him, the Romans, you so-called white men in America, you French, the Greeks, everybody that rises up against the Levites, what happens to them? They don't rise again. It's like they don't rise again. And the Most High smites them through the loins, man, and cuts down the enemies of Levi in due time. It may not be today, but it will be at a set day. Right? Let's get this real quick. So you can link up 1st and 2nd Maccabees in that account and link it up with the blessing of Deuteronomy, the 33rd chapter. Right? You can link it up with Deuteronomy, the 33rd chapter. Let's see. I believe we're on 2nd Maccabees. Right? Then I want to move on to the next tribe. I may have to do a part 2. Right? I really want to kind of get this in one lesson. Right? It's like, yeah. Second Maccabees chapter. I want to get the point where its insides were rotten. Okay, this 2nd Maccabees chapter 9 and 9. This deal with Antiochus Epiphanes IV. So that the worms rose up out of the body. So he was alive and worms were coming up out of his body. And he rose up against the Levites. Don't you know Judas or Mattathias, Judas, Simon, Jonathan, Eleazar, John Hyrcanus, Astrobulus, all these men were Levites. Maccabees is full of Levites. And look at what happened to the man, the chief man that rose up against him. He was smitten in his loins. His insides were rotten, and he died the death of the wicked, because he was the wicked. Right? Here's the plague that the Most High put on him. A fulfillment of Deuteronomy chapter 33. So that the worms rose up out of the body of this wicked man. And whilst he lived in sorrow and pain, his flesh fell away. And the filthiness of his smell was noisome in all his army. So imagine being alive, you're so sick, worms start coming out your body, crawling through your skin. You start stinking, right? You got feces all over you, worms coming out your neck and coming out your mouth. And it reads, and that man that thought a little afore he could reach to the stars of heaven, no man could endure to carry his intolerable stink. So this guy, it says he couldn't even take his own smell. Right? He was smitten in the loins. Why? Because he rose up against Levi. Showed that hatred against Levi. Let's deal with the next tribe. So we've covered Reuben first, Judah, Levi, Now we're in Benjamin. And some tribes, they have a shorter blessing than others. Like Reuben had a very short blessing. You read about Joseph. Joseph has a long blessing. Judah had a kind of a longer blessing, right? Every tribe doesn't get the same amount of blessings, right? And that's the will of the Lord. Deuteronomy chapter 33 and 12, right? It reads, and of Benjamin, he said, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him. And the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. So Benjamin, when you look up, let's put up a map of Israel. I had this pulled up. Right? Let's see. Bear with me. I'm going to have to pull up another one. Okay, here's a map, right? Let's see where Benjamin was stationed at, or his land was allotted at. Bear with me. I have to open this. Okay, so you see where the Lord would dwell at. The Lord would dwell in Jerusalem. Now, in Joshua, the 15th chapter, some accounts, you read about Benjamin. Some account shows Jerusalem in Benjamin, some shows it in Judah. The point of the matter is in Deuteronomy chapter 33, and this is the city of the great king. Right? That's where the temple was. The temple was very close amongst the Benjamites and the Judites. So when it says the Lord shall dwell amongst them, and the spirit, it was where the temple was. Because the Lord does dwell amongst all the tribes, but it was specific because Jerusalem was on a border between Benjamin and Judah, right? When you look up most maps or when you read most accounts, when you read the allotted lands, sometimes you read about Jerusalem being allotted to Benjamin. Sometimes you read it being allotted to Judah. Now, in the spirit, we know Judah has more of a stronghold because Yahweh Shah is a Judite. But then you read about Benjamin as well. And Judah and Benjamin are like this. You see that? Those really are your top. I mean, they're connected. The same way Ephraim and Manasseh are like this, or Zebulun and Issachar, Judah and Benjamin, they go hand in hand. Right? That's the spirit the Most High joined them together. Even here, even today, you see Judah and Benjamin amongst each other, man. You know, Judah hang around Benjamin more than they really do a lot of the other tribes. Now they deal with Ephraim, right? They'll deal with Levi, but Benjamin and Judah, they got a different spirit. Judah, they love their Benjamite food. Benjamin talking to Judah. Judah, it's a thing. Now you can say, well, I don't get it. I don't understand. Well, you got to be a Benjamite or a Judite to understand. You know? Or you may have experience growing up around Benjamites or Judites. They have a particular connection. Right? Now it reads, when you go to the book of First Kings, the 12th chapter, right? Let's go to First Kings chapter 12 and verse. Actually, I want Second Chronicles 11. That's better. Right? Let's go to Second Chronicles chapter 11 and verse 12. Here's Rehoboam, right? And in every several city, he put shields and spears and made them exceeding strong, having Judah and Benjamin on his side. So the top tribe, Judah, the Lord always had Benjamin attached to them. Benjamin was always under that shadow of the kings. They always had a strong relationship with the chosen tribe of the Most High. And Levi was right there with them because Levites were the priests of the Most High. So your Benjamin, your so-called West Indians, right? Your so-called Jamaicans, Bohemians, men of St. Lucia, St. Thomas, right? Canary Islands, right? Those are your so-called Benjamites. Pull up West Indians. See that? These are your so-called West Indians. So they actually showing me, let's just do so-called Jamaicans. Now you can say, well, I'm not from Jamaica, but I'm still a Benjamite. Well, we're just saying Jamaica just because, right? These are your so-called Jamaicans, your Benjamites. And Benjamin Benjamin got a different spirit too, man. Just talk to a Benjamite, right? Talk to Benjamin, you'll see the spirit that they have, man. And Benjamin got a warrior spirit too. And if you go out there to Benjamin, they got machetes, they'll kill you, man. I think they still stone people out there. Like if you a sodomite or something, they don't play around with certain things out there, man. They'll kill you. So you got your Benjamin. Oh, you got, who's that? Look at this. Just hanging out. Esau in the midst. No, he don't fit in. Right? These are Benjamites, man. Right? The fastest men. And he got the fastest woman. Right? So this is Benjamin right here. Deuteronomy 33. The beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, because Judah and Benjamin were like this. And Benjamin was always with the men of the Lord, always with the kings of Israel. Even Saul's sons, Mephibosheth, right? And Ziba and these different men, they were always amongst David. They always dwelt in safety. Benjamin will always be taken care of. Due to their position of their land, where the temple is, and where Judah is, and the relationship between those men. That's why it reads, the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. So you see, if we pull up the map again, where's this map of Israel? Bear with me. Okay. He shall dwell between his shoulders, because that's where you have Jerusalem, and you have the Benjamites right amongst them. And when you deal with the allotted lands, like I've been mentioning, but I'm going to prove it, in the book of Joshua, the 15th chapter, I want to get this. Let's see. I want to deal with Benjamin. Right. Let me get straight to the point. Right. Now I have to. Okay. Now check this out. Now this is Joshua 18. Right. Now when you read Joshua the 18th chapter, you read about the territory of Benjamin. Right. 18 and 11 on down. These are the different cities that were given to the Benjamites. Right. Now one of their cities is Jerusalem, and Zelah and Eleph and Jebusai, which is Jerusalem. That's why some accounts will attribute the temple of the Lord being in Jerusalem. It's like being amongst the Benjamites. Then another account, it may say Jerusalem, because they dwelt between the shoulders. They were in the shadow of the Most High. Where the Lord's eyes were and where the spirit was, Benjamin was always amongst the Judites, right? And amongst the shadow of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, you know? So that's what it means. The Lord shall cover him all the day long, because he was covered, seeing that Jerusalem was in that actual land, right? And the temple of the Lord was in that land. Verse 13. Let's see how much time I got. Okay. Let's deal with Joseph. And of Joseph he said, blessed of the Lord be his land, for the precious things of heaven, for the dew, and for the deep that coucheth beneath, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things brought forth by the moon. So Ephraim will be extremely fruitful. That's what Joseph means, he will add. In the Hebrew is Yawasap, right? I didn't go into Benjamin. Benjamin's name in the Hebrew is Banyamyan, meaning son of the right, right? So his mother Rachel, as she bore him, was on her way out, going back to the spirit world. She went to call him son of sorrow. Jacob said, no, I'm going to call him son of the right, right? He shall dwell between his shoulders. Now, Joseph means he will add. Yawasap in the Hebrew. Why? Because the Lord would add the blessings and sons unto the children of Joseph. Okay, so that's what it means. Blessed of the Lord be his land for the precious things of heaven, for the dew and for the deep that couches beneath. So these are your so-called Puerto Ricans. It's really going into Ephraim on a deeper level. Right? So Joseph breaks off to your on a deeper level, your Puerto Ricans and your it's like your Cubans, right? But really it's dealing with Ephraim. These are your so-called Ephraimites, right? Your Puerto Ricans, what they call your Taino Indians. And they have a very fruitful land. That's why they called them a rich port. The word Puerto Rico means rich port, port of riches, because in Deuteronomy 33, it speaks explicitly about the natural resources that they will have: the gold, the silver, the topaz, the diamonds. You understand? All of the infinite things that the Spanish took from them. They knew about that blessing given to Joseph and what they would have in that land, right? See that? See, these are your so-called Puerto Ricans, what they call a rich port. Now, again, their blessing goes into the fertility of their land and the amount of natural goods that they would be able to bear, which by hence made them receive that byword as a rich port. Right? Let's read on. And the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and the precious things brought forth by the moon. Now, I haven't been to Puerto Rico, but I know people from Puerto Rico, and they speak about the fruit that grows out there, and you don't have to, go to all of these stores. It's in their backyard. It's a mango tree out in the backyard. They got this out there, and they speak about all of these riches that they have. The other tribes really don't have these things, man. They don't have the abundance of fruits and gold and silver and the things that they had. That's why out of all of the people, they called the Ephraimites, the sons of Joseph, a rich port, due to the abundance of wealth and the things that they had, because that was the blessing given to them by Moses, the man of God. Right? When you read verse 15, it speaks about the chief. It says, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills. Now, it's hard to actually find a lot of documentation about the wealth that they had, because the Spaniards stole and lied about it all, man. But I'm led to believe before the Spanish came over there, they were flowing in the wealth. I'm led to believe the gold cities, people dressed in gold, pearls, rubies, fruits, and I could see it now. Mangoes and bananas and all types of things, man. Now, if you're an Ephraimite, then you know. Right? Like I said, I haven't been there, I've never traveled there, but I got brothers that are Ephraimites, and they speak about these things, man. Now, I want to see if we go into, I highly doubt they're going to give the answer. Why are Puerto Ricans called, I don't know, Puerto Ricans, right? I want to see if they give the answer. Let's see if they want to speak up and say something. Let's see. Right. They may not say it. I see chicken pox. Bear with me. So they may not go into it. Right? They may not go into it. Let's see if they got the word wealth in there. Riches. Right? So they're not going to really go into depth, right? Because they don't want that really to go out. But we know why they're called Puerto Ricans. Right? We really know why. All right, but that's all right. We'll move on. It reads, and for the precious things of the earth and fullness thereof, and for the good will of him that dwelt in the bush, let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. Because Joseph was separated from his brother. Remember, Joseph was the favorite tribe, right? Joseph, or it's like he was the favorite son. Remember, the Lord made him a coat, right? His father made him a coat, and that coat showed that Joseph was Jacob's favorite in his old age. Go to Genesis chapter 37. Genesis chapter 37 and verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. So he was separate from his brothers, right? He's the one that received dreams. Everybody didn't get dreams like this man. Prophecies. The Most High gave him different gifts. Judah didn't get that. Levi didn't get that. Joseph got that. To the point that every son received particular blessings and a particular spirit. Yeah, they were all of the same stock, but they have a different way of life that the Most High has given them. Right? It reads, and Joseph dreamed the dream, and he told his brethren, and they hated him yet many more. So he was set apart, man. He was hated by his brothers, loved by his father, right? He dreamed dreams, and he can interpret dreams and break dreams down to. You can tell him any dream under the sun. Joseph would say, oh, that means that. Okay, let's talk about that. Those 3 trees mean 3 years. Yeah, that water, that represents this in the word, and you got to make sure you do this. Right? And certain men had these abilities. Even Daniel had the ability. He was a Judite to interpret dreams. Right? Jacob could interpret dreams. He's the one that said, he's the one that broke down the dream with the 12 stars and the sun and the moon. He said, shall I and my mother, shall I and your mother bow down to you and your brothers? Jacob broke that down like that. Right? So he was set apart from his brethren. That's what this means. And he's the one that received what? The birthright and the blessings. He received 2 portions. When you look up the land of Israel again, where's that map again? You see 2 of the sons of Joseph. You see Manasseh. You got the 1/2 tribe on the east side of the Jordan River. You got the other half of the tribe on the west. So you got Manasseh and you got Ephraim. That's technically Joseph. Joseph has 2 portions. He has Manasseh and Ephraim. Right? Now, Ephraim is the one that received the blessings. Let's go to Genesis chapter 48. Right? Genesis chapter 48 and verse 10. Actually, I'll get straight to the point. 22. Moreover, I have given thee 1 portion above thy brethren. See that? Which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. So Jacob told him, hey, look, you get 1 portion of above your brethren. Now I'm going to jump up to verse 20. And who's the ones that got the portions? His sons. Genesis 48 and 20. And he blessed them that day, saying, and thee shall Israel bless, saying, the Most High make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he did what? And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. So even though Manasseh was the oldest, see how that works? We went into it earlier. Isaac wasn't the oldest, Ishmael was, but the blessing went to Isaac. Then you had Esau and Jacob. Jacob wasn't the oldest, Esau was, but the blessing went to Esau. It's like your Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. Reuben was the oldest, but it passed Reuben and went to Joseph. Joseph had his sons Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh was the oldest, but it passed Manasseh and went to Ephraim. You see that? So he said Ephraim before Manasseh. All right. Let's go to Numbers chapter 1 and 32. It reads, of the children of Joseph, namely of the children of Ephraim, right? By their generations, after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war, right? So your children of Joseph, aka your children of Ephraim. He was separated from his brethren, a double portion. Even the fertility of the land and the natural resources and the clear water and the fruit trees and the vegetation. Those people live differently than the other tribes. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of a unicorn. With them, he shall push the people to the end. He shall push together. It's like you. With them, he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. So Joseph is going to be right up there along with Judah in a sense, to be able to help gather the tribes together, to be able to push them together. His horns represent his strength, his zeal and wisdom, and diligence to serve Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. He's going to push together the people. That's why they're likened it to a rhino. Right? They're likened it to a rhino because their horns represent their strength in the law and their faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. And they're going to use that to push the people. See, the lion is likened it to Judah, and a rhino is likened it to Ephraim. And they're going to help be the segue or the trailblazer for the rest of the other tribes. Because honestly, Ephraim sets the standard and the trend amongst the other tribes. Everybody follows Ephraim. When it comes to the so-called Latin tribes, when it comes to the Cubans, Dominicans, Guatemalans, Mexicans, Ephraim is pretty much up there, huh? You know? And Ephraim got a different spirit than the rest of the other so-called northern tribes. So they're going to be the ones to be able to set, it's like I keep saying segue, but bring about these other tribes and bring them to Judah. And then Judah and Ephraim are going to lead the way to seal the elect and to push this word before this place goes down. That's the blessing of Joseph. Verse 19. They shall call the people unto Slakia. Verse 18. Now we're dealing with Zebulun and Issachar. And of Zebulun, he said, rejoice, Zebulun, and thy going out, and Issachar and thy tents. Because Issachar and Zebulun was like this too. Your Mayans and your Aztecs. When you look up the Mayan Empire, first, we got to notice, right? Your Issachar are your so-called Mexicans. Zebulun are your so-called Central Americans, Guatemalans and Panamanians. And they live amongst each other. Let me close out some of these things. It'll make it easier to find what I'm looking for. Right? I had these. I went through these already. Okay, so here's the Mayan Empire. And the blessing says what? And of Zebulun, he said, rejoice, Zebulun, and thy going out, and Issachar and thy tents. So Issachar and Zebulun will go out and in and dwell amongst one another. That's why a Mayan Empire map you see parts of Mexico, which are your Aztecs, right? And you see your Mayans, your Guatemalans, your people of Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua. Those are your so-called Central Americans. And they would dwell amongst one another. And if you look on the bottom, that's the Mayan world on the map, which are your Zebulonites. And your Issacharites are your so-called Aztecs. And they would do trade amongst one another, right? And even do sacrifices. That's why the next verse says, they shall call, and they both were into those calendars. You got the Aztec calendar, you got the Mayan calendar. And they were able to discern the times and look at the stars and be able to know what the Most High would do on the earth. That was part of the blessing of Issachar. Let's get that at 1 Chronicles. right? Chapter 12 and 32. It reads, and of the children of Issachar, Slakia, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were ready at their commandment. So your so-called Mexicans, they were able to discern the times. That's why they had their own calendar that said this is going to happen. This eclipse. Okay, this blood moon is coming. Okay, the full moon is coming here. Okay, here comes the winter time. And your so-called Mayans had a Mayan calendar. And they were trying to calculate the end of the world. And they weren't far off because we're living in the last days. They got close to the last days. And they said in 2012, man. And we still in the end of the world right now. So they had that same spirit. Now it also reads, they shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness. For they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of the treasures hid in the sand. And they would do sacrifices. Some of these sacrifices was off. I'm going to just put it out there. And they would take the heart out of a man and cut him open and offer it up to the sun. They did a lot of off sacrifices too. When you watch that movie Apocalypto, they show you that. You have some Zebulonites conquering other Zebulonites and using them as human sacrifice. But also when they were in a right mind, they were doing sacrifices of deer, sacrifices of clean animals, and they actually knew the name of Yahweh and the name of his son Yahushua. Right? So they would do sacrifices. Now here's an off sacrifice, a jaguar. Can't offer a jaguar to the Lord, but they had priesthoods. They had a high priest. All right, they had sacrifices. They had feast days. They had these things, man. Now, they were known for sacrificing deers. Mayans, which are your so-called Zebulonites, considered the deer the lord of the forest and often sacrificed them as a treasured tribute to the gods. And some extent, Mayan art, deer are also associated with motives of death as well as with authority and power. So they will offer up deers upon their altars too. And they would call the people to sacrifice. They would go on top of that ziggurat, or top of that temple, that pyramid they made. They would have the high priest. They would blow the shofar, and all of the people would gather together for the sacrifice. Right, like I said, when you watch that movie Apocalypto, it's like my spelling is all jammed up. See that? And you had this guy, and he was a demon. And he had a sun necklace around him, and they caught all of the people as they gathered them. And you had women out there, little children and babies and old men. And they caught these people, see that, behind the scenes. See that? You cut that guy out, man. Cut him down. And Apocalypto is a good movie, man. It was a good movie. See that? And they was going off too. Right? They was going off, painting them blue and dapping them with all of this stuff and doing all of these sacrifices. Because they still had that will to serve the Most High, but it wasn't according to righteousness. That's what it means. They shall call the people into the mountain, because that's what they would do, the sacrifice and gather them. And at one time it started off righteous, and they were doing the things in the law, but then they started turning left. And as the more they were turning left, that's when Esau started coming in the 1400s and start bringing disease and plague as judgment upon them for those wicked sacrifices that they were doing, man. All right, moving on. And of Gad, he said, blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion and teareth the arm with the crown of the head. So your Gadites are your so-called Native Americans. Right? And they were enlarged. They were given the entire, what they call so-called North America. See that? And we covered some of the tribes from the Massachusetts to the Apache, right? From the Seminole to I don't know the suit, right? The Lord enlargeth Gad, and they were given amongst the tribes a vast portion of land, more than Ephraim, more than Judah, more than Benjamin. The Lord enlargeth Gad, and he dwelt as a lion, right, in the open terrain. You understand? In the open field, and hunted his prey. He was a hunter too, because lions are known for being hunters. And the Gadite was known, right, with the bow, right, with the bow and the so-called arrow. See that? So they were hunters too, and they dwelt in solidarity as a lion, and they fought like a lion. Even another movie, when you watch the Revenant, they got Leonardo DiCaprio and some other people. It showed them fighting them Gadites out there in Oregon and Washington or Montana, wherever they was at. And it was killing these Edomites, man. It was jumping out of the water, jumping out of trees, snapping necks, drowning them, stabbing them in the face. So they have that warrior spirit, that hunting spirit, and even the lion's environment and terrain is peaceable. So that's what it means. They shall dwell as Slakia. They shall dwell as a lion. Let's go to First Chronicles again. First Chronicles 12 and 37. And on the other side of Jordan, the Reubenites and the Gadites, right, your so-called Native Americans, and half the tribe of Manasseh, with all manner of instruments of war for the battle, and 120,000. So these men could carry all manner of instruments of war. So a lion could get down, a lion could kill, a lion to hunt you, pounce on you, destroy you. These are the characteristics of a lion. So like, and now it also reads, and teareth the arm with the crown of the head. And that goes into Gad and their particular ceremonies that they would do, where they would cut their arm, take the feather and cut it, the arm with the crown of the head. Right, let's see if I can find the technical name for that. It can cut arm, right? I don't know how to actually type that, right? But they would actually have these ceremonies. Let's see. All right, I can't really find it. But when you look up, maybe the search engine I'm on, when you look up how Gad would do it, Gad would actually take the crown of the head and they would take a knife and they would use it as a form, it's like you, as part of their ceremonies, right? Let's see. That was part of the customs of Gad and Reuben. And he provided the first part for himself, because there in the portion of the lawgiver was he seated. And he came with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of the Lord and his judgments in Israel. So he kept laws here, right? And time will fail me to go into all of the books of Gad, knowing the name of Yahweh, knowing the land Sabbath, knowing about the circumcision, knowing about clean animals, unclean animals, sacrifices. He knew about the law. He came over here, we read in Second Esdras, that there he might keep his own laws. They had their own military, own structure, own priest. And he executed justice of the Lord, because they were men that actually lived up to the law. Right? Men that actually kept the commandments when they came over here. And of Dan, he said, Dan is a lion's whelp. He shall leap from Bashan. So Dan is also like unto a lion's whelp. And Dan came to this side of the world too. And Dan would have inhabited, let's see, say he will be a serpent in a way. in Genesis chapter 49. So Dan would have dwelt in the Lesser Antilles, right? Or the Windward Islands, they would call it. So Dan came over here and they say he would leap from Bashan. Now, historically, Dan's land that he was given, when you look up the 12 tribes, or when you look up the land, let's see if I got that map again. All right, the map of the 12 tribes. I have to pull it up one more time. All right, let's pull this up. Just to kind of give that understanding again of the 12 tribes, right? Now, Dan's land, you see it right here by Ephraim and Manasseh. But then, if you look up another map, his land moved up north of Bashan. Bashan is right here. Gilead and Bashan is this region. And Dan actually went up and took this part of the land and took that land from the Zidonians that dwelt there. So he leaped up from Bashan as a lion's whelp and slew them when you read the book of Judges and took over that land. All right, let's finish this. I got to press for time, extremely pressed for time, right? And of Naphtali, he said, satisfied with favor and for the blessing of the Lord, possess thou the west and the south. So they have the west and the south. Remember, your so-called Naphtali is Argentina to Chile. And what part of South America do they have? They have the west and the south, right? They have Chile and Argentina. They have the farthest west of South America, and they have the farthest south of South America. And this is where your children are Naphtali dwell at. They possess the west and the south. And they were full of blessings. They had the entire Incan Empire, full of gold, silver, right? Verse 24. And of Asher, he said, let Asher be blessed with children, and let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. Thy shoes shall be iron and brass, and as thy days, so shall thy strength be. So Asher are your so-called what? Colombians to Uruguayans. And between Colombia, Brazil, Uruguay, there is really no other part of the earth that's more impactful to the economy when it comes to oil and iron than your so-called Brazilians, Colombians, and people of Uruguay. I mean, even in parts of Venezuela, you have Asherites that dominate oil production, right? Here's a quick fact. Brazil is the largest oil producer in South America, the 8th largest global oil producer, 8th largest oil consumer, and has the largest recoverable ultra deep oil reserves in the world. So that's why it says, let him dip his foot in oil. He's deep in oil. He's deep, and even oil on a spiritual level, understanding. But on a natural level, the land that they would dwell in would be an abundance of oil, would be an abundance of even iron and brass. Right, here's another one. South America contains about 1/5 of the world's iron ore reserves. The most important beds are located in Brazil and Venezuela, supplying domestic iron and steel industries as well as exports. So iron, brass, oil, the natural resources have been attributed to the sons of Asher. You can't make these blessings up. You see Judah, we read Levi, we're reading Asher, and it all links up with history, the precepts, even in modern times, how these prophecies and blessings are still falling upon the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. So those are the blessings in Deuteronomy chapter 33. Most High willing you are edified. Keep the Sabbath holy. No buying, no selling, no sex on the Sabbath, no cooking, no doing your own pleasure, speaking your own words. With that, head at the camp. Yahweh Bashmel Shai Barakatham. Kwam Yashab.